This is as light as it's
He's
gonna
in a
get.
bunker.
He's okay.
Okay.
All right, everybody, we are live. We are live with Anthony Mestas from his underground lair bunker. Hanging out.
Greetings.
Thank you, Anthony, for joining us. We're again Steve and Scott and Jason. Welcome to Model Club TV WantaFest live stream. Anthony,
Awesome.
how are you?
Pretty good. Pretty good. How are you guys doing?
We're doing okay. You think this is going
Good.
okay?
Where
so
are
far?
you? Where are you? By the way?
I'm in my secret model lair. I had to straighten up, so you don't see any models there.
It's where the
That's
magic
where all those
happens.
dioramas you make. You just pull stuff off the walls, right?
Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to give away any of my secret projects. So I had to put stuff away.
Oh man! So we're here. We're going to talk about our WonderFest memories. When was your first WonderFest?
Who's answering?
You.
You're being interviewed.
Oh, I don't know about that. I was trying to figure that out. Since this is a WonderFest discussion topic forum, I think. I mean, I cut my teeth on Mad Model Party because I can never get over to WonderFest. Living in Colorado at the time, it was just too much of a.
How long does it take you guys to get from Colorado when you were there to Louisville?
We drove once, right?
Yeah, if you drive, it's like, I don't know, 18 hours or some nonsense like that. A flight, you usually got to stop like in O'Hare or Dallas Fort Worth or some nonsense. Even though Colorado looks like it's in the middle of the U.S. and it would just be a quick jaunt over, it's not quite that way.
We're out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it takes a little bit, but I mean, I think if memory serves me right, I think it was 98, maybe 96, somewhere around there. Because
They were saying that 96 was Harryhausen.
I was there before I know I was there for Harryhausen because I didn't get his autograph, so that sticks out. So
I didn't either. I thought I was the only one.
Yeah, no, I remember when Harryhausen was there, and I think it was that time. It had to have been. I had my Harryhausen scrapbook and everything ready to go in my suitcase, and or I thought it was in my suitcase. It was on my suitcase. Come to find out, I get to the show and I left it back at home. So I was like, well, that sucked. And then the lines were ridiculous. So I just watched from the sidelines and just took everything in. But yeah, it was mid 90s when I finally made it out there.
Did you like it? Did you hate it? Were you like, oh, this is the best thing ever? Was it, I got to come back? Or
no, it was great. I mean, like I said, I cut my teeth on Mad Model Party on the West Coast, and that was an awesome show. It was small. I didn't know what to expect, but I was losing my mind at that show. So when I went to WonderFest, which was pretty much the mecca of the garage kit hobby at the time, still is here in the U.S. I was freaking out. It was sensory overload. You're trying to figure out how you're going to spend your money, where you're going to spend your money, people that you've only talked to that you're finally meeting in person. You might have been talking to those people for, years and only know them by voice and have to figure out this was pre-internet. So you don't know what the hell anybody looks like or anything. And it was always phone calls. So it was good to go and you kind of, approach, hey, are you such and such? Are you this, that, and the other? And then, you end up meeting people, making friends, and making the trek year after year, which is, to me, which is the fun of the show. Even though I haven't been there for a few years, it eventually evolved into going to WonderFest to meet your friends, having drinks,
absolutely,
talking shit, starting trouble, whatever it may be. It seemed like it evolved from going and buying kits to kits almost became secondary. You went in there, got what you wanted, and then went and fucked around.
I think that's the evolution for everybody. I think it is.
Yeah.
Were you on the Gremlins list?
The old timers. I was on the Gremlins.
Yeah. All of us were, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd love somebody to I was telling Steve, somebody needs to get that archive back up online of all
that'd be cool
on there, because there's so much history, there's so much fodder, good stuff, bad stuff. It's so good.
Dude.
I'm dying to like go back to.
If we could read all those emails again that we would get.
I know there's some of Johansson. I was probably cursing him out back then.
Probably.
Yeah, if I recall.
Probably.
I always got along with everyone.
We all know that.
Yeah.
So were Steve and Anthony, were you guys friends before Wonderfest, or did you meet, like, how did you guys meet?
When was that? That was, I'll tell you when I first met him, but he didn't know it.
He was stalking me, apparently.
It's weird. There was this show called Baby Boomerama. Remember that, Anthony? Yep. And it had all these kits, and it had who's that Scream Queen, the girl that was in Pumpkinhead 2?
It was Leanna Quigley, wasn't it?
Yeah. And she was there, and Lori and I, Lori's my wife, we were there, and we were having they had a little soda area, a little snack bar place, and there was this kid sitting in the next table, and he had this big book of pictures, and I go, man, look at that kid's got all kinds of cool stuff. And so I go, hey, can I see some of that? And you go, yeah, sure. It was Anthony Mestas, but he was like 10 years old as far as I was concerned back then.
Yeah, no, I remember that because I in Colorado, it was like there was nowhere to find garage kits. I didn't know. I knew like one person who happened to live right next to me that was into the stuff, but he got into it when I did, and so I was like trying to hit the shows and see what's out there. So if it was even an IPMS show or some, like Steve said, a baby boomer show, which was like kind of retro collectible type show, I would try to make the trek. And this one was out in Denver, which was a little bit further from where I lived. That was like 2.5 hours, 3 hours to get there. So I went out there and with an ex-girlfriend and stuff, and drug her along and made her suffer. And the thing was like I was out there looking for kits. Like I wasn't really at that time a big nostalgia or Star Trek or I wasn't that big of a. I was very focused on what I was looking for. And
what were you looking for? Like, what was your thing? Because we kind of talked about that before.
It was model kits, but basically monsters.
Yeah, okay.
So when I went out there, I was like, hopefully, I've heard that there's some kits. I heard there's, this could possibly be a place where I can meet some people or whatever. And at the time, I used to, I was into garage kits, and I was already starting collecting and trying to get all the stuff all the info I could get. So the book that Steve was talking about was I used to have these big giant binders that I'd amassed of like, when it all started, it was like, I'd go, a lot of people talk about how they, go in the back of Terry's books and not mail, write letters and make phone calls to all the manufacturers, whether it was Geometric or whomever it may be. And I was reaching out to everybody. And of course they would send, handwritten or typed flyers or their catalogs.
The Puffin Stuff catalog. Remember that thing?
Yeah. All of it, Monstrosities, all of that old stuff, all that stuff. And I used to save it, and I used to put it, neatly in Mylar, and I amassed these huge binders, and I was just such a dork. And I would like take these big tombs around, it was like the 10 Commandments, and I'd like take them around, and I had them at that show, and I don't even know why I brought them. I just had them with me. And, it was almost like chumming the waters, see who comes around. And here comes Steve, like floating around. It's like, and there's blood in the water. So I was just there, relaxing from the show and looking through my stuff, and he showed up, and that was the first time we met, and then I realized he was in Denver and he was into the same stuff, and that's all it really took was to have that common. Finally, I found somebody on like a desert island that was still into that.
Yeah, that's always a good feeling. Like it really is.
So we became friends, and then we ended up going to a show like in Colorado Springs, which was Midway, and then we stood in touch, and it was all like, once again, phone calls and gremlins, and then sharing information, and
AOL Messenger.
Yep.
So it was always funny because Gremlins, when you would go on Gremlins, it was all like you'd send an email. It was like a bulletin board kind of esque style, still set up. So it was never instant. It's not like texting now and everything. There was a way.
Yep.
So it's like the amount of time wasted on conversations and swapping info was insane. But that was really the only way to kind of, at the time, it was like groundbreaking. You were able to, you had this huge hub of collectors and people that were into the same stuff. But it was like you would send out a message and then you'd sit there and wait.
Yep.
And refresh, it was like a mini Christmas, like, and then, you know, and then God forbid it spooled into, some argument, because then.
We were just talking about that. I would get home from class, because it was when I was in college. I'd get home from class and you'd have 600 emails, and it was all one-word responses that you had to go through. Yeah. And maybe that was better back then, because it took time for people to chill out instead of just instant arguing.
I think what they were going to hit back with, or what they were.
There was no censorship, though. It was just anything goes.
It was Wild West.
It was bare knuckle collecting, is what I like to call it. You get in there and, and hey, if you get offended, big fucking deal.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world. But now, it's
now forget about it.
With the internet and everything that's out there, and the way things go, it's such instant gratification, and I don't know. It's kind of a bummer. It's good that, as far as the hobby goes, you can find anything. You could talk to people. You could get information, but it seems like the hobby's gotten a little squirrely as far as that goes, in my opinion. Yeah. It kind of just turns into a big form of jibber jabbing.
Yeah,
I think everybody the kits have become secondary, unfortunately. So
yeah. Yep. Well, back to Kits and Wonderfest. Did you enter the contest a lot?
Funny, because I would have loved to, but my first show was Mad Model Party, and that was in '94. And I entered the model contest not knowing what I was getting into. That was like my first real show. I entered in like an IPMS show locally in Colorado and took a couple awards. But I mean, it was cool. It was good. I was excited, but I mean, there was like 5 kits in there. So it's like, you're not really competing a bunch against many people. But so when I went into Mad Model Party, that show was touted as like, special effects artist, the top of the top. And, I was like, shit, all right, I'm going to go in here and see what happens. This is going to be awesome. I was just wanting to see what was going to be there. Yeah. I figured, and at the time I brought, what was my A game, and entered a couple pieces. I entered like 3 pieces, like a Predator diorama that I had customized that was probably still curing, on the plane, and a pumpkin.
Kneeling, right?
What was that?
The one that was kneeling on the rock or whatever?
It was squatting like in a waterfall type deal. It was a billiard. Yeah. And I entered a geometric pumpkin head, and I entered, I think it was, what was the other one? Might have been Metamorphosis Addict, or no. Yeah, I don't remember what the third one was. Maybe it was just those 2. Anyway, I was going to go into the beginners category. I didn't know what to expect. And at the time I was friends with Tom Gilliland, but I had never met him in person, and he was judging and bringing people in. He was at the door, registering people. And I was like, hey, I got this piece I'm going to put in there. I guess, put it in beginner, because I'd never been into a show. And he looked at it and he was like, yeah, you should probably put in professional. And I was like, what? I don't know about that. And he's like, trust me, put it in there. So I put it in there. Long story short, I ended up winning.
Man,
a professional show, first place. So I was like freaking the fuck out. First show. Then it goes to second Mad Model Party. I entered and I won first place again, professional. Then I was like, holy shit, this is awesome. I'm onto something.
Yeah.
So then after that show though, they're like, hey, guess what? You can't enter anymore into the contest. And I'm like, wait. To me, that was fun. Like, it was fun, and it gave me a reason to actually focus and build something throughout, the year or whatever it was. It gave me a purpose to actually.
We know that story. Like, we feel, yeah.
If not, it's like you just kind of do what I'm doing right now and not building anything. But so then after that, they're like, but you can become a judge, and I was like, all right, I'm cool with that. I'll do that. But I still wanted to compete. But what happened was that carried over into Wonderfest. So when I showed up at Wonderfest, I was like, all right, I want to enter the contest. And they're like, they had already kind of set some rules in where it was like, oh, you won professional 2 times, and now you're like a career model guy. You're not coming into the contest. I'm like, well, what kind of bullshit is that? But you can be a judge. And I was like, I don't want to judge. I want to enter some model kits and stuff. So
you can be a judge and not go to dinner till 9 o'clock.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So that's the long answer of your question. It was no, I never got a chance to enter in there, but
Terry got you though, right?
What was that?
Didn't Terry get a hold of you at Mad Model Party?
Yeah, that was where I finally had
get into the magazine.
Yeah, the magazine was just. He had told me at Mad Model Party when he was there, his book had just came out, his second book, and we were talking, and he was like, "Oh, we're doing some stuff, and it's going to be awesome." And it was AFM, so I was like, "Oh," and he asked me if I wanted to be part of it, based off of that diorama that was at Mad Model Party. So he was looking for writers, and he was there, looking for people to be into the magazine. So that kicked off that whole thing. So like I said, it was like I was just getting started and getting my feet wet, and it blew up so big that I didn't really get to play on it. I didn't get to play ball. I was just like, what happened? I thought this was supposed to be, model contests and having fun, but right away it was like, it came with the good, but it also came with the bad, because now I'm like having to write articles, never wrote articles, and have pictures, and that was pre-digital, and build kits and all this stuff. And I was like, I just kind of wanted to have fun. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what I got.
Now
shot
work
out
for
of
us, boy. That's
I got shot out of a cannon real quick. I'm not complaining.
No. Yeah.
I was gonna say my heart's bleeding for you right now. Yeah.
But I mean, when you start, you want, I'm a fan and a collector and a hobbyist just like everybody else, and so it's like it would have been nice to have some kind of
an arc, instead of just
and be able to participate.
Yeah.
And, because even with that comes, unfortunately comes the haters and everybody else, and so it's like I'm new to everything, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, that fucking guy. And I was like, I don't even know any of you guys.
That fucking guy. Yep.
That bullshit artist.
Anthony, if you go back to the early days, you were mentioning phone conversations. What were some of your phone bills back then, pre-cell phone and all that? Do you remember having $100 phone bills and
shit? Even back then, I think I was living at my grandmother's house. So guess what? They were free.
Yeah, as far as you knew.
Luckily, I was somewhat spoiled back then. But I mean, I was much younger. But yeah, I know there was sometimes though where the calls would get a little up there, and it'd be like, if anything, she'd be like, "You're still on the phone? Get off, get off the phone!" And like a little high school girl chit-chatting about monsters.
Yeah.
Like, hey, what new kit did you get?
So you're a little younger than like Steve and I. You're probably closer to Jason.
Yeah, I think.
Actually, no. I think you're a little older than Jason. But so was the Aurora? Wasn't really your gateway, or was it? Were you?
No, it was, because.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, the thing was because it was super early, so I had to be like, as weird as it sounds, I had to be like maybe 4 years old, and it was my grandfather, and I mentioned this before, to various people in some interviews and stuff like that, but I was so into monsters and dinosaurs, and so when I hit that, it was already the glow kits. They weren't the original releases on the Aurora stuff, so it was the bigger box stuff, the Frightening Lightning, and then the prehistoric scenes and all of that. So as soon as I started seeing those popping up, at the drugstore, which people are probably like, what, the drugstore? We had little drugstores in town that had toy sections and model sections.
Woolworth. And
I was like right on the cusp of all that. Like, I was born in '69. I'm 51. So.
Right.
You're
right at the end. Yeah, you're right at the end of it.
Where the stuff still existed, but not for long. Because I remember going into like Kmart and stuff, and prehistoric, seeing Aurora model kits were on the shelves. And I remember going in like, it was kind of like a treat on the weekend if you did good on in your schoolwork or whatever, pick out a kit or whatever, buy some paints. Because I never really remember going to. I mean, we only had one hobby shop, and I don't really remember going into that because you didn't have to go into the hobby shop back then. You could go into all these other stores that had stuff like that in there, and so that was what started. And my basic involvement was they'd get the kits. My grandfather would build them, but I'd sit there right next to him at the kitchen table, just watching him, and I was coaching him. It was all the Pactor paints, the old faceted square bottles with the enamels.
Yep.
And the tester paints and stuff. And he would ask me like, well, what color do you want this? And I'd pick some crazy color, and he'd give me the bottle, and I'd shake the paint. He's like, shake it good. And I just sit there,
that's awesome.
shaking it, and I'd give it to him. And, the paint was minimum. It was like, I remember like it was yesterday, him painting the King Kong piece. And him and I used to go up to the mountains all the time and do rock collecting and all this stuff. And he'd show me what mica rocks were that had, the shine and the iridescent and everything. And that was my thing. So of course, when we're working on the King Kong on the island that had the rocks and the trees, I'm giving him silvers and all this shit. All right. And I still have the kit. It's back in Colorado. I need to get it over here, but the rocks are silver. It was always very basic. So he'd paint like the base and the trees, maybe paint the Fay Ray, and he'd paint like a lot of the time. If I didn't tell him what I was wanting, he would just go off the box art or whatever. He would just do his own. So a lot of the stuff kind of like the box art. So he just paint really vibrant white eyes with a black dot or, red lips on the creature or whatever and call it a day. But, as a kid.
That was good.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. It looks exactly, when you're 4 years old, it looks exactly how it's supposed to.
We have the same story almost. Like, that's where mine came up.
That was how I cut my teeth. And the funny thing is, or the lucky thing is that I have all those kits that my grandfather had painted.
That's pretty good too. Save all that stuff. That's great.
Yeah, because my grandparents were pack rats, just like me. So they always kept the stuff, and it was in the basement, and they always knew not to throw it away because I'd freak out. And so it's still there, and I'm thankful for that, because there was one point where when I started getting back into kits, painting and stuff, like right out of high school, I was going to revisit all those Aurora kits, and I was like, oh, I'm going to repaint all these kits and make them look awesome. And I never did, just because it was like that wasn't the top of my priority. But now, at 51, and my grandfather passed 5 years ago, I'm like, thank God I never went and repainted those kits, because it's basically, time capsule, and the memory and everything else. I would have been so pissed if I would have went in there, regardless if I would have, done the best paint job I thought could ever be done. I would have wiped off all
that memory. Yeah.
All that history.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I have the same thing. My uncle, all the old Aurora kits, my grandma would show them to me all the time. I didn't actually watch him build them, but whenever I got babysat, she would bring them out and show me. And then a couple of years ago, he gave them all to me. So I have them sitting up there in that case of all the old Aurora monsters, but his old like little kid paint jobs that he did when he was a kid. And it's so cool to see what he did with them. So I totally feel you on all that.
Because it's so weird to think, growing up where you think like, and that's what happens. That's why a lot of people don't have that stuff, because they're blowing it up or destroying it, because at some point in your life, you're going, this stuff's cool, but who gives a shit? And then you get to that age, where you're just like, this stuff means so much more than that. And you grow up, and you're just like, oh, this stuff is priceless and irreplaceable.
Yep.
And I think that's the lure. That is the lure of the core of the hobby. I mean, that's what it is. It's what it is, because a lot of people don't have those kits or remember building them, or they have all these fond memories that they're trying to bring back in the hobby. And Wonderfest itself is that iteration.
See, Anthony does.
That you can see the guys, the age group and stuff. You can just see them.
And you can do exactly what we're doing now. Talk shit and memories. And like, hey, how did you start this, and how did you get into it? Stuff that you would never know unless you were hanging out at a show, or like you said, on a phone call. Or it's not the same when you're just sitting there texting or you're on on some type of social media. It kind of takes the fun and the fake.
I think that's the best thing about Wonderfest is you get to see all these people that, I mean, literally coast to coast. I have friends.
How cold everybody gets.
Right. Yeah, that too.
Yeah. Crazy Joe wanted me to let you know, Anthony, that's a pretty straight beard. Okay, that was his comment.
This is my COVID growth.
Your COVID beard? Okay.
I figured I was gonna let it grow until this shit was over. This is the longest it's ever been. So
I was letting my head grow. I had to shave. I looked like such an idiot. I had to get rid of it.
I don't do that. That is what I had.
Yeah.
The light. Look at this. It's like the light.
So we're gonna, Anthony, we're gonna have to have you back. We're gonna do this more. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Anything you want to advertise? I don't know. Any links you want to give out? Any plugs?
Not really.
Tell everybody to go to Sideshow and buy stuff, but I don't think you
buy Sideshow stuff so Anthony can keep working. Yeah, there you go.
We don't sell model kits, but it's for all the people that don't build model kits, which there's a lot of them nowadays. You can just go over there and forget the whole process. Go buy stuff.
Scott just had a heart attack, I think.
Put it this way: we have some stuff that's coming out that will probably appeal to the collectors, our genre, of what we collect. I'll leave it at that.
Cool. That's it. Hey, great place to leave it.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Awesome.
Seriously, thank you so much for being here. And everybody will be back in a few minutes with Rob Madison.
Cool.
Thanks.
See ya.
Thanks, Anthony.